All right, so welcome to CSS Custom Properties. Actually, never mind. So let's see, what are they? It's the ability to define variables in CSS and then use them in multiple places. And that's the basic definition, but it's actually a lot more powerful than that. So hopefully we can illustrate that today. So a little bit about, well, CSS variables have been available in preprocessors for a long time. And CSS Custom Properties is the spec based or addition of that. And so when I use the term native CSS variables or CSS Custom Properties or CSS variables, I'm going to be talking about the spec based version of it. And if I want to refer to a preprocessor version, I'll be explicit about that. So I'll try to be consistent, but if I vary a little bit, we're talking about almost this same thing the whole time. So closer. All right, so the problem space. Apps often have a lot of CSS that can be in one large file or even lots of files, and those could even be large. And many of the CSS values are duplicate, especially when we like to theme our site and use the same color in lots of places. Changing those values is kind of tedious and error prone, and especially if you're a new team member grasping the structure, or even just understanding how far reaching a minor change, a minor tweak is kind of daunting and a real hassle to track down. So let's whet our appetite with some syntax and then jump back into some spec-based stuff. So this is how you would declare a CSS custom property. If you're not familiar with the :root selector, that just gives you the topmost element in your DOM. Same as HTML, I think, but one of them has a higher specificity. And so this is a good way to declare variables that are global to your whole page. And then we are inside of an element because that's required by the spec. And then here's how to consume them. No, you can declare, they cascade, so you can declare them inside any element or selector block or whatever you would call that. Matthew?
So you can, according to the spec, you can declare them anywhere, but for the purposes of certain things like CSS Next requires them to be clean in order to process them.
So if it was declared in the article tab, or the article, like in the article block like that, would I only be able to access it from another article? Does that make it, like, I don't understand. What's the scope of it, basically, is what I'm asking.
It follows the cascade. So yes, yeah, we'll get more detail. This is just to whet your appetite. Yeah.
So what happens if you have a conflicting
A what?
conflicting needs? Let's say that you have frame rate color in the root, and then you specify a different frame rate color variable in the article.
So it follows the cascade just like other CSS properties. So you'll overwrite what's higher up in the cascade.
Specificity.
That thing, specificity. Yep. Follows the cascade, specificity. Okay, so here are the spec-based rules. Have to be inside an element. I'm pretty sure that's in the spec, but you know, if Matthew says I'm wrong, he's probably right. Let's see. Starts with 2 dashes, and then is followed by an accurate and descriptive name, and that is in the spec. It's not. Okay, I added that. And they are case sensitive, unlike other CSS properties. So watch out for that. Maybe, I don't know, Bruce, recommendation from Bruce, just keep them consistent. Let's see, what else? Works with shorthand properties. So let's take a look. So we've got a header and an H1 inside the header. And we're going to we're in our side of our root again, and we're going to define 3 variables. Primary color is orange, padding with 4 values, and some margin sides with 1 value. So notice we're, what are those called again? That term keeps leaving my brain.
That's the shorthand.
Shorthand notation going on here, and then we'll use it 2 different ways, 3 different ways down below. So we're gonna set the background color to orange. We're gonna set the padding to that shorthand value there. All 4 of those values will get substituted in, and then we're gonna use it as part of a value here. This will be a vertical and a horizontal. Is that the right order? Value. So you'll end up with margin being 1M space 2M. Right. Okay.
Make sense?
So it is unfortunate. Anybody wondering why they did 2 dashes? It's kind of unfortunate that they did that, in that you have to now quote them if you want to use them in JavaScript. But the reasons for it are they wanted to coexist with the preprocessors for not only the short term, but I'm kind of thinking long term that'll be a good thing. And they also promised, it's in the spec, it says they will never define the meaning of a dash dash property. So those are there for the end developers, users, period. So I think that could be good, helpful when you're trying to figure out what's going on. Let's see, and the cascade, that's worthy of its own slide. So let's take a look at that. So we got a header and a footer, and we've got an H1 inside of each of those. So let's take a look at what we did with our CSS here. So we're defining a primary color of Rebecca purple in our root, and then we're going to consume that in our H1. And so in our header, the H1 in our header is going to pick up that Rebecca purple. No problem. But then when we come down to our footer, we're going to redefine that primary color to be orange, and then notice our H1 inside of our footer picks up the orange instead of the Rebecca purple. Any questions about that? Okay.
You swap H1 and footer, would they both be 1?
If I did what?
You swap the order of H1 and footer.
No, they'll stay the same. Yep.
Sorry, I have a question. So does that change that going forward?
Say that again.
Does it change the orange going forward? So if there's, so it's not purple, and then does it stroke?
It's following the cascade and the specificity. So if we were, I'm trying to think of a good example of that. If
If you had another page one footer, it would be orange, but if you had another page one outside of footer, it would be
right, so
I think by a selector, you're changing the value of a variable. That's pretty much what that's just showing. The selector changes the value of the variable, and then just like their CSS specificity rules, whichever one is more specific, declaration wins in that section.
yeah, I think.
Seems to me that a lot of confusion, I think, for most people, is the idea that, you declare this primary color in root, which makes it seem global, and to us developers are going to think, oh, a global variable, if I change it to one place, it's going to change it going forward. But they're not variables, they're properties, they're custom properties that we can give default values to, which we change within elements, just like you change background color between elements. Background color might have a default value, but it's going to change from element to element as you specify what that change should be. So really, we shouldn't be looking at it as a variable. We can use it like a variable, but it's not a variable. It's a custom property that we define within the cascade statute itself.
That's a good explanation. Thanks. Does that help? Okay. Thank you. All right. So let's get to the nitty-gritty about using them. So this is redundant a little bit, but bear with me. So we use them by calling the var function, and then the first parameter is the variable name, including the 2 dashes, and you don't quote it. And the optional second parameter is a default value to fall back on. And this syntax is kind of sweet because it gives you a nice API functionality to work with as a as a component author, you can have a variable consume a variable that your you say that right. Let me start over. You can use a variable that your consumer can set and provide to you, and if they don't want to provide you with a custom value, you can just fall back to whatever you're going to specify yourself. So really nice theming / API hook for your otherwise isolated components. So let's spend 2 seconds on this one. So we're just gonna, in this example, we're just falling back to Rebecca Purple, and we did that because I typoed the color name, the variable name. So that's all that's going on there. And I could do the same thing here. So if it's no difference one way or the other. It'll use the fallback if it can't find the variable. That's all we're trying to demo here. Yeah, Niels.
Is there a limit to how many fallbacks you have?
I believe it's just one fallback. So if you want to nest your var calls, you can. So you could have a var with a variable, and then for the fallback, you could have a var with another variable, like that.
The fallback, the default kind of looked like it was an array.
That's the optional. Sorry, that was an optional notation, not an array notation. Sorry. So I don't know if I did that or if I got that out of the spec, but if I did it, sorry.
You can actually fall back to the variable name.
So you want to see that? So you could do var let's do YYY and fall back to Rebecca Purple. Thank you. Missed the dash there. Need another paren. And now, since color X doesn't exist, it didn't take it. Hello. That's awesome. Okay, but I got it. And now if we define my Y, it's green. Green. Jaime.
Does the var function only go through custom properties, or can you use those back?
Wait, say that again?
Var function that you pass the custom property to, right there.
Yeah.
You have var dash color X. Should I pass in var color, like a native property?
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
That would be awful. Would it accept it?
Thanks. It did accept. Thanks. I don't think you need the dashes, right? Oops. Sorry. Okay. Darn it.
So why is that white?
Ah, good question. Let me have you hold that question, and we'll get there. I promise. Okay. So uses. You can use it as any part. The var. We're talking about the var function call here. Any part of a value in any property. So, and you can use it with calc. So let's show calc really quick, because I'm going a little slower than anticipated. So I'm using calc with a var right here. And then in this case, I'm using it as part of a value. Calc and var, both. You could use it with or without the calc, of course. And then you cannot use it as a property name, and you cannot use it as a selector. So here I'm going to set up a variable that has a value of background color so that I could try to use it as a property name. Xnay, not going to work. And then selectors also. I guess maybe I didn't demo that, but you can't do it. You can't use it right here. Not going to work. You can use it as in a media query, but not as the query part, and you can't use it for anything else. So let's look at the media query. This is a working media query. I'm going to start with working. So when I'm below 400 pixels, this variable of primary color orange kicks in, and then I have a media query for the 400 pixels, and I redefine the primary color to be Rebecca Purple, so I switched to Rebecca Purple. That's valid, of course, as you saw, but this is not. So I'm trying to set a variable of small screen, set it 500 pixels, and then use it right here. Can't do that. Use a custom media query instead. I'll give you that functionality. Right. So if this is your question, we're getting to the why was it white question. If you have an invalid value or a circular reference, we're going to revert to initial. And so let's show that really quick. In this case, we have an invalid value. So I have a variable called named not a color. So I set it to 3ems, clearly not a color, right? And I try to use it right here for background color. 3ems background color doesn't work, right? So so it's going to revert this property to initial, which is transparent, if you look at the spec for background color. And then in circular reference, actually, let me just mention circular reference right here. I've got primary color referencing main color and main color referencing primary color. So these two will be invalid. So this property right here will be set to nothing, and so will this one. Will also be nothing. Now there's a slight difference. I guess I better show these. There's a slight difference between how these behave, and maybe don't. My comment and uncomment's not working. There we go. Maybe don't memorize this, but keep in mind that keep in mind that there's a nuance here. When the error occurs here on the variable definition, then here's the circular reference right here, then this variable is set to nothing. When the error occurs right here, so this variable is perfectly valid, so there's no error there, and so not a color gets set. The error occurs when you try to use it in the wrong place. So this guy gets set to initial. That's the nuance there. Whereas these are both invalid, so they're set to nothing. So this guy doesn't resolve, and he falls back to line. Yeah, right.
So if bar not a color and that color there, when you change it to not a color B or something, that would go to Rebecca Purple.
Yes. Okay. All right, where are we? Let's fly. So why use preprocessor variables like Sass and Stylus? And the main reason's for browser support, and that's a really good reason, and that's why we've been using Sass and other preprocessors historically. And that's really the only reason. But for native CSS custom properties, one of the benefits is that we don't need a preprocessor, and I think that's meh. It's neither here nor there because for the foreseeable future, I see us using a preprocessor, but I like the sentiment, right? And then they cascade, and the browser repaints when values change, and they can be modified from JavaScript at runtime, which are some of the things that Jasper's going to show us, and those are kind of awesome. I don't have like the Corey Brown personality, or I'd be jumping up and down trying to explain to you how awesome that is.
Get a hat.
I need a hat too. I don't have a hat. Sorry about that. So let's look at if we can use it. And the short story is we're short on Edge and IE. And don't you guys get kind of tired of saying it here in new features soon? Yeah, it kind of sucks, right? Yeah, it keeps getting better. And notice that Edge is in development, so that's good. But I don't think we're ever going to get IE. But what if we could have our compatibility and our features too? And we can. There's this post-CSS plugin that allows us to leave the custom properties in place and also dump compatibility property in there. So let's see how that works. So here on the left, your code, you've got a variable declaration here, and you're using it here. And then after post CSS variables gets done with it, it slaps a static value for that property right above it. And so when your dumb browser comes along, it sees this property and uses it and throws this one away because it doesn't know the syntax. And when your smart browser comes along, it sees this property, records its potential use, but then sees this one and overrides it. And so you get smart behavior when it's available and dumb behavior when it's not, or I should say static. And so that means now, not later. Yay, right? Okay, so React Stack support. Right now we're substituting at build time. So we're just giving you that static behavior. And we just barely found that plugin. And so we're going to run it through our QA and validation processes. And once it passes, we're going to add it. It'll be in our next release. So I wanted to give another last example, if I may. It's similar to the simple cascade example, but it illustrates the power of the cascade in combination with vars to give us some contextual use in a semi-real world scenario. So let me show you the HTML. We basically just have a header, a main, and a footer, and they each have an H1 in them. And so our context, the context for the hey is header, the context for the ho is main, and the context for let's go is footer. So let's see what I did in the CSS. So styling for the H1 is to define a color. Color is the color of the text, right? And I'm going to consume the variable secondary color. And in the cascade, that doesn't exist. So for the H1, that first H1 for the hey, that's H1 and header, and that variable is not defined, so it reverts to initial, which is black. So that's why that's black. Then the next section, our orange section, is our main. And I am setting the secondary color. I'm setting it to Rebecca Purple. And so this same styling block right here for H1 picks that up, and now it's purple in that context. And I'm also setting primary color to orange and consuming it immediately here, so background's orange. And then footer, I'm setting secondary color to orange. So we're in a different context here, and then the same styling block for the H1 is consuming that variable, so we're orange now. And then same thing with the background color, defining it and using it. So same H1 styling, 3 different contexts, all different values. Pretty sweet. I think I'm excited to see what people do with properties, CSS custom properties. I think it's going to be amazing, and I think it's time for Jasper to give you some of that awesome stuff.
Just a quick question about this. So would this be a recommended use case? Maybe I don't understand, but this almost seems like a handy pattern to change. I mean, does anybody feel that way when you look at that? And so we have our background color set to whatever, and then we change it with the variable inside of, as a property. I mean,
I think it feels different, but what I think the way you got to think about it is like they're theming hubs. So you're maybe building just some sort of widget you want to put on the page, and instead of requiring the people consuming the thing you're building and having to kind of hack through and figure out your class names and figure out your DOM structures and basically override with more specific behavior, like how to change the colors. What they could do instead of doing something like that is expose out a set of variables that say, hey, if you want to theme this to your brand or however you want to do it, don't worry about my internals. Don't go hacking through my class names and stuff.
I get that, but at the same time, you would also say, okay, but we're going to use the same name of primary color for main, and then we're going to use the same name in the footer, and it's going to change the color with the same name in different areas or different contexts on your page. I'm not saying that obviously the variables I haven't used them yet. They seem like a great idea, But from your example, it seemed like that you would have a main color and a footer color, and that would be the variables that you would hook into. My question is what would be the use case of using it in a situation like this where you have the same variable name in two different places with two different contexts on the page? That's kind of my question.
So if you have like, let's say you have a tile or something,
Okay.
that when it's in the main part of your page, you want it to be stylistically louder, right? You want it to have bigger type, you want it to have, just be louder. But on the sidebar, if it's there, you want it to be quieter, right? You can create the exact one component, one widget. That makes sense?
Mhm.
That where you plop it in, it gets a contextual. It's basically getting contextual styling now. And so it makes things a little more complex for sure. And definitely there's a potential here to shoot yourself in the foot big time. But the power it gives you is the ability to create these really reusable, pluggable things that are now kind of more contextually aware.
Jaime, you had a
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I recently read an article and the guy pointed out, basically what was very being said is that this could be considered by many as an anti-pattern. But, what this guy pointed out in the article is that one of the, and I think he's right in saying that one of the biggest benefits you can get from custom properties is the responsive design and in media queries. Because right now, when you create a media query, say print page, you have to go through every element that you want changed. Let's say I want to make sure that the text here, I'm not going to print any color. Let's say I want to make this grayscale or something like that. When I do a print media query, well, I've got to go through and manually change everything in main, everything in footer in the media query to print. But with custom properties, I can just change that one property